You're watching something rare unfold in real time, a trade war Donald Trump personally ignited and is now losing. At this very moment, the most powerful man on earth is being strategically outmaneuvered by a country barely 1/10 the size of the United States, and the fallout won't be abstract or theoretical. It's going to hit consumers directly, harder than any tariff ever could. Let me explain what's actually happening. While mainstream media outlets are obsessed with Trump's latest Truth Social tirades, threatening Canada with 100% tariffs, floating 50% duties on aircraft, and making the bizarre claim that he could decertify every plane built north of the border, they're missing the real story. The real story isn't what Trump is threatening. It's what Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has already done, right in front of the global community, and why Trump has no real way to stop it. Here's what you need to understand. On January 20th, 2026, Mark Carney stood on stage in Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum and delivered a speech that reportedly infuriated Trump. Just weeks later, speaking again before an audience of global leaders, Carney made a statement that should have been obvious, but apparently wasn't. Middle powers must act together, he said, because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Trump was there, he heard it. And within 72 hours, Canada was quietly removed from Trump's so-called Board of Peace. Shortly after, Trump threatened 100% tariffs on Canadian goods and began deliberately referring to Carney as governor instead of prime minister. An unmistakable insult suggesting Canada should be treated as America's 51st state. But this is where the script changed. Carney didn't retreat, he didn't apologize, he didn't hedge. Instead, he challenged Trump directly. When Trump declared that Canada lives because of the United States, Carney responded immediately, "Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian." Then Carney went on national television and labeled Trump's tariff threats exactly what they were: bluster. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tried to clean up the damage, telling Fox News that Carney had privately softened his Davos remarks during a phone call with Trump. The very next morning, Carney held a press conference and said, on camera, "To be absolutely clear, Wags, and I said this directly to the president, and I meant what I said in Davos." A foreign leader had just publicly contradicted Trump, with receipts. Now, some people hear this and think, Canada is smaller. Trump can crush them with tariffs. This is just political theater. That assumption is exactly what Trump wants. So let's talk about the numbers, because this is where Trump's entire strategy collapses. The United States and Canada exchange roughly $1.9 billion in goods and services every single day, totaling over $900 billion annually. Canada is the largest export destination for the United States, purchasing $349 billion in American goods in 2024 alone. 34 U.S. states sell more to Canada than to any other country, more than China, more than Mexico. Canada also supplies more than 60% of all crude oil imported into the United States. If Trump imposed 100% tariffs on Canadian energy, gas prices wouldn't rise eventually. They would spike within weeks. The U.S. auto industry, deeply dependent on Canadian steel, aluminum, and auto parts worth over $100 billion annually, would seize up almost immediately. So when Trump threatens Canada, he isn't really threatening Canada. He's threatening American consumers, American workers, and American manufacturers. And Carney knows it. That's why he isn't blinking. But the tariff threats are only the surface story. On January 16, 2026, Carney traveled to Beijing and did something Trump had explicitly warned him not to do. He finalized a trade arrangement with China. Under the agreement, Canada agreed to allow a capped number of Chinese electric vehicles into its market at sharply reduced tariffs, down from punitive levels imposed in 2024. In return, China rolled back retaliatory tariffs on Canadian canola seafood, and agricultural exports, restoring billions in lost market access. At first, Trump praised the deal. He told reporters that striking agreements with China was a good thing. 5 days later, he reversed himself entirely, threatening massive tariffs if Canada pursued closer economic ties with Beijing. What changed? Davos. Trump realized Carney wasn't just signing a trade deal, he was signaling something much larger, that Canada was prepared to act independently and help organize a coalition of middle-power economies. That realization triggered panic. The China deal alone reopened billions in export markets for Canadian farmers and fishers, but more importantly, it sent a message to the rest of the world. Canada will not automatically align its economic policy with Washington. And it didn't stop there. Since January, Carney has announced new trade negotiations with India, ASEAN nations, and South America's Mercosur bloc. These are not symbolic gestures, these are active talks happening now. Trump's response has been predictable: more threats, more insults, more Truth Social posts. But there's a problem. Trump has already played his strongest card. He threatened 100% tariffs, and Carney called the bluff. Here's why Trump can't follow through. The USMCA trade agreement, negotiated and signed by Trump himself, shields the majority of Canadian exports from tariffs. As of late 2025, more than 85% of US-Canada trade remains tariff-free under USMCA provisions. To impose the tariffs he's threatening, Trump would have to violate his own deal. He's tried before. In early 2025, Trump invoked emergency powers to impose tariffs on Canadian goods. Canada immediately retaliated. Within weeks, US manufacturers complained of rising costs, supply chain disruptions, and lost competitiveness. Trump quietly exempted most USMCA-compliant goods. Every escalation has ended the same way: economic backlash, then retreat. Now, Trump is escalating again, this time targeting Canadian aircraft, especially Bombardier. He claimed he could decertify Canadian-built planes. That threat makes no legal sense. Thousands of Bombardier aircraft already operate in US airspace under FAA certification, issued by an agency run by Trump appointees. Legal experts and aviation officials quickly clarified that decertifying aircraft already in service is not possible. Translation: Trump threatened to ground planes used by American corporations and wealthy US customers, and then had to walk it back. Meanwhile, Carney's government responded calmly, emphasizing that aircraft certification is a safety issue, not a political weapon. No panic, no concessions. This is Carney's strategy. Every time Trump escalates, Canada diversifies. Every time Trump insults sovereignty, Canada asserts independence. And every time Trump backs down, which he repeatedly does, he looks weaker. Trade analysts now joke about an acronym circulating in Washington. TACO, Trump always chickens out. But this isn't a joke if you care about your wallet. The USMCA faces mandatory review in July 2026. Trump has already signaled he wants to restrict Canada's ability to trade independently, especially with China. Carney has made it clear that won't happen. If Trump pushes too far, Canada won't collapse. It will pivot, backed by alternative trade routes already under construction. And here's the reality. Trump doesn't want to admit tariffs on Canada would hurt the US nearly as much as they hurt Canada. Energy prices, auto production, manufacturing costs, inflation, gas prices are the political third rail. Touch them, and support evaporates. That's why Trump keeps threatening and not acting. Carney is betting that Trump will choose embarrassment over economic self-destruction. So far, that bet has paid off. Watch July 2026 closely. If Trump demands submission, Carney will walk, and other countries, from India to Southeast Asia to parts of Europe, will be watching carefully. Trump believes tariffs are leverage. In reality, he He's teaching the world how to function without American approval, and once that lesson is learned, it can't be undone. Watch the trade announcements, watch the business backlash, watch gas prices, because when Trump's tariff strategy finally collapses, it won't be diplomats who feel it first, it'll be consumers. And Carney just showed the world how to call the bluff.